Begin the current Daf, Mesech Bava Metzia Daf Yud Gimel. Begin on the bottom of Yud Beis and Beis, 5 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara continues the discussion that we began on the previous Daf. And that is, in our previous Mishnah, we mentioned this theme of the Parakim so far, of Metzias, of Zem Anim Metzia. So our Mishnah spoke about if someone finds a Shtari Chayv. So it is a little bit of a complex Daf. Someone finds a loan document. So the Mishnah differentiated if there's a Achrayus Nechasim, if there's insurance, if there's a liability that you could collect from the guy's assets, then you don't return it, because the courts could collect from that. If there's no Achrayus Nechasim, then you do return it, because the courts cannot collect from it. That's the opinion of Reb Meir. Chum said, no, either way, you don't return it, because the courts will collect from it. So the Gemara wanted to know, well, what are we talking about? If the borrower, whoever the party is, he admits that he owes the money, so when there's a Achrayus Nechasim, why wouldn't you return it? He admits. And if he's not admitting, so when there's no Achrayus Nechasim, why would you return? Although you cannot collect from Mishabadim because no Achrayus Nechasim, but you're collecting from his available assets and he's denying it. So why would you necessarily return it to the lender versus the borrower? So the Gemara answer says, we're talking about Keshachayiv Maida, which is that the borrower admits, he says, I owe him the money. Why don't you return it when there's Achrayus? Because we're concerned, and this is what the Gemara is going to continue with right now, for what's called Shemakas of Lilvais ben Nisan. Maybe they had written it to be borrowed in Nisan. But the loan didn't happen until 6 months later in Tishrei, but the date was written 6 months before. So what's the problem with that? Problem is, so good, Chayiv is Maida, good, you could collect from his stuff, but whatever he sold off in those 6 months was really before the loan, but the document says that the loan was before the sales. What that means to say is that this lender is going to collect from people who bought in those 6 months inappropriately, and because of that, when there's a Achrayus Nechasim, we can't just return it to the lender. So the Gemara says, well, then every document say, when the guy comes and brings it up, no, we can't let you collect with it. Why not? Maybe it was written 6 months before the loan actually happened. So the Gemara says, no, a regular document doesn't have any reyuses, doesn't have any flags on it. There's no reason for us to suspect such a thing. The moment that it falls, it's already a flaw. Why is it falling? Must be because you weren't so careful about it, because you know there's something wrong with it. What's wrong with it? Because it was really written months before the loan actually happened, and therefore it's really not a good document to collect from Nechasim Mishabadim. Because of that, we are chayshish, and even if he's admitting, the Bava Metzia, I didn't pay it up, it's the lenders, you cannot return it to the lender. That's what the Gemara is up to at this point. The Shit corresponds because the Nechazkel turned of Dafachem, should turn today's Daf, should be Schuz, Bachin, and so on, that's all, throughout the entire world, should be Marbim Besimcha for this month and for the entire year. So let's discuss in today's Daf, are Achrayus Nechasim, which is this concept that our Mishnah is differentiating, that we're focusing on, which is that when a person has depending on what it is, but let's say like a loan, where the guy lends him the money and then he owes him not only his available assets, but that, meaning his cash, but all his assets, there's a lien on it. And if he sells it off, then the lender could collect from whatever that was collateral was sold off. Shtar Hakna is a document that he transfers his funds, whether the loan happens or doesn't happen from today. And that's Shtar Hakna, where he's marketing them already now. Or a different principle, as we see, is that the witnesses, with their signatures, they already are transferring, they're giving the rights already to the other party just with their signatures. The concept of Achrayus Sefer, which is discussed, that do we say that who would go ahead and lend money without insurance? Of course, we presume that there's going to be Achrayus, and if it's not written, it's a Toy Sefer, it's a scribal error, and there is going to be Achrayus. Shtar She'em B'Achrayus, the difference regarding a document. What is the halacha? What is Shtar She'em B'Achrayus? Do you collect from everything? Do you collect from nothing? Do you collect only from B'nei Charin and not Mishabadim? You can see three different opinions in what's the status of a Shtar She'em B'Achrayus. Matzah Shtar Chayiv, regarding the halacha, if you find, there's a halacha of our Mishnah, if you find the document of debt. And the concern, as we said, of Kasa Lilbas Ben Nisan, Tishrei, which is it was written to be borrowed in Nisan, but it wasn't, the loan didn't happen up until Tishrei. And then the different ideas that the Gemara discusses, Chashin Leperoin, are we concerned in general that maybe it was paid up? And then another thing is Chashin Leperoin B'Kanunya. Are we concerned that even if the borrower admits that it's the lenders, are we concerned that no, really, he paid him up already? So why is he admitting that it's the lenders? Because the borrower has no money, and the borrower had already sold off some things. He says to the lender, look, I'll say that I didn't pay you up and that I owe you the money. I don't have it. You'll collect from my guys that I sold it off to. We'll split it because they're in it, what's called kanunya. They're in on it together. Are we concerned for Perayin and kanunya? So we begin the current daf. As we said, just to quickly review, we said in the Mishnah that if someone finds loan documents, Meir differentiated between if there is a chayes nechasim or if there is not. He said if there's a lien on the debtor's properties, he's not allowed to return to the guy who finds it because Bezdin is going to collect with these documents. But if there's no achrayas nechasim, then you can return it because Bezdin will not collect with it. That's the words of Meir. Chacham said, no, either way, you cannot return it because the Bezdin will collect with either document. That was what we learned in the Mishnah. So the Gemara had asked, as we said according to Meir, well, manavshach, if he admits, who cares that there's a chayes nechasim? If he doesn't admit, so why would you return it even if there's no chayes nechasim? So that's where we're in the middle of that discussion, which the Gemara had said that, the first opinion is regarding that we're talking about that his chayiv is moedim, and we're middle of the opinion of Reb Meir that he admits to it, but nevertheless Reb Meir says yesh ben achrayis nechasim lo yachzer. Why wouldn't you return it? The guy's admitting because Rav Asi explains koshteri lo rei. Ordinarily, documents are not subject to suspicion, but hani rei, this document arouses suspicion. Like Rashi explains, if it were valid, he would have guarded more carefully. That's what the Gemara is up to right now, 5 lines up from the bottom of the Yomid. Like we said, that because we're concerned that maybe it's written to be borrowed in Nisan, but he didn't borrow on Tishrei, and then you're going to come to collect L'kuchash like it did, and like we said, because since it fell, it's a reyesam, we're concerned that maybe it happened and that it was written. So that says the Gemara, what do you do with the Mishnah of Bava Basra? Mishnah says, that you write a document to a borrower, even though there's no lender with him. You could write out that I borrowed $5,000 from this guy. The lender's not there. You could write it for the borrower. Now the question is, initially, how could you go ahead and write this for the borrower? What do you mean? You're running right into the problem that we just said. Why, when the guy who finds Shtari Chayv cannot return to the lender, shouldn't you be concerned that if you're writing a jif for the borrower, the lender might not be agreeable to lend him the money yet? They might write it that the loan happened in Nisan, but they didn't borrow until 6 months later, and then you're going to come to collect from the borrowers whoever from the buyers inappropriately because it's going to say that the loan happened then, but the loan didn't happen until 6 months later. So how are you allowed to go write the document for the borrower himself? So Rav Asi says, as you get to the top of Yud Gimel with Aleph, we're talking about B'shtarei Hakna'a. We're talking about where these are specific documents of transference, which is that the borrower is actually transferring his assets from today, whether the guy lends him or doesn't lend him, he'll be able to collect from that day that it was written. Where he is making a shibud already himself. So the truth is, it's like a loan happened anyway. So when did we say that you write the loan document for the borrower, even if the lender's not there, is specifically for shtorei hakna. Shtorei hakna, there's not going to be concerned because even if it only happened 6 months later, he already was mishabed himself, so already lean on this property now, and then yes, any guy who buys after this point is buying property that has a lien on it already now. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, that by document that's not hakna, that then you're right, you can't write for the borrower only if they actually see the loaning of the monies. Now I have the following question, says the Gemara. Masnin, the Ketani, our Mishnah that writes, that in the opinion of Reb Meir, that we differentiated, we said that im yesh behen achrayis nechasim, that if there is achrayis of the nechasim, then we said lo yachzer. Now, but Kimna, we explained, this is a daf that you have to halt up on. We had explained kishachayiv maidam. We said, the case is talking about when the borrower admits. And so we said, if he admits, so why when there's a achrayis, why when there's a lien on his property? If he's admitting, the borrower is admitting, why don't we return it to the lender? We said why. Because maybe he wrote that it's going to be borrowed in Nisan. but the loan didn't actually happen until 6 months later in Tishrei. And what's the problem with that? Oh, the aslimit of lukuchash like it didn't. You can end up collecting from the buyers inappropriately because it's going to seem like they bought it after the loan when it really wasn't. Says Gemara, wait a second. Amay lo yachzer. I don't understand now. Why can't you return to the lender? Next, let's see. Manavshach. If this document that was found is a shtar hakna, again, remember, shtar hakna says that the guy is transferring the funds right now, even if the loan didn't happen yet. So what's the problem? Hashabali nafshe. So he made a lien for himself right now, where therefore you could collect from the lukuchas.
He went and sold it. In other words, those other people come into the equation. The other people that he were worried that he's paying them back and not from the Kodem, from the Shtar. No. In other words, there's people.
He sold the property.
Huh?
He sold the property. Now there's other
He
He
gave
sold
the
his.
Shtar, and then he sold it. He did two things.
Say it again. What's
In other
the
words,
case?
He gave the Shtar, right?
He got a shtar hakna. He got this
You're
shtar.
worried about people getting paid off from those nechasim, those karkos. What are you worried about? That he sold it out from
He sold the
underneath.
karka, and then now the guy's coming to claim it from those people.
Right. The
Right.
lender is going to take and collect from them, even though the loan didn't happen. If it happened 6 months later, if he's going to collect from the kuchas, guys who bought, if you buy after a
No, the guys
loan,
that bought.
right?
So they bought land. He sold the land after he gave the shtar.
He sold the land after he wrote up the shtar, exactly.
So
But
he's a Rama. This guy's a Rama, you're saying.
well, it could have been a mistake. It could have been an error. They wrote it for the loan to happen, but it only happened. They only did the loan 6 months later.
Okay.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
wasn't sure what was going on.
Yeah. So that's what the Gemara is saying. Manavshach, it's a shtar hakna. So he already made himself indebted. In other words, there is a lien already on the property. Who cares if the loan only happened 6 months later? Lien and loan. There's a lien now, even though the loan doesn't happen 6 months later. And if it's not a shtar hakna, it's a regular loan document. So wait, lekala mechish, and the concern doesn't start. Because you told me when the lender is not there, and to give the money in front of them, like kasvinon, they don't write such a shtar. The whole concern doesn't start in the first place. Manavshach, you told me that you could only write it and do it even though you don't see a loan, only when the witnesses, only when it's a shtar hakna. So if it's a shtar hakna, great, there's already a lien, and if it's not, you wouldn't do it. So Amalei Ravasi says to him, no. You're right. Although a shtar, that's not hakna, which is where the concern would be. When the lender's not there, we don't write it. But masnit, in our Mishnah, kivin the nafel, since it fell and somebody found this, that's what we're talking about, the Mishnah is talking about someone found this, Israelite, that's already a flaw. Because maybe it happened and they wrote it. You're right, inappropriately. They had done it and written it. And why would we concern? I don't do it because there's a flag over here. The flag is that we found this. No one loses a shtar unless it's taken not a kosher shtar, and therefore that's what we're going to be chayshish. So this was all one approach in explaining the machlokes Remeir and the Chachamim, that the Chacham say, as we're going to see shortly, achrayus is toy cipher. No, the establishment of a lien is always assumed, even if we're not explicitly mentioning the shtar. So therefore, there's a concern that any document be used wrongly to collect property. So according to Chacham, even if it's aimed by achrayus nechasim, it's like there's achrayus nechasim. So we have the same halacha like Remeir said, that by achrayus nechasim, we're concerned that maybe that it did happen and you had written a shtar in Nisan and only had the loan in Tishrei, and you're going to inappropriately collect from the lekuches. But when there's no achrayus nechasim, that's not a concern. So that's the machlokes Remeir Chacham again, but it's talking about where the chayiv is moida. That's where, and it's based on the principle of shtar hakna. Abaye Amar, he says, this to be learned in Mishnah Bava Basra, that you could write a loan document without the lender. He says is actually Eidav b'chasumav zachanlai, is because the witnesses with their signatures, they are meriting it for the lender, and therefore, even if it's not this specific shtar hakna, which is to acquire and transfer the funds right now, even so, the same halacha would apply. And therefore, even if the lender is going to come to collect from now, 6 months earlier than what the loan actually happened, it's not inappropriate because the witnesses with their signatures are mezaket to him. From the day that they sign, the shibud takes effect. And even if the loan wasn't up until 6 months later, up until Tishrei. Now, the Gemara explains what's really Abaye gaining. What's the difference? No, same idea. It's just telling us why we're not concerned for this shemakas of livas benisin v'leilav Tishrei. So one is a type of a document, one is that the witnesses' signatures. So the Gemara explains that the reason why we're saying this is because Mishum de Kashile. Abaye found difficult the answer of Ravasi. What was his difficulty? Because Skivan the Amrit Bishtar de Lavakna, since you said, and it's really what the Gemara just referenced before, since you told me when the shtar that's not akna, when the lender is not there, you're not allowed to write it because of that concern. So we don't have to be concerned that maybe it did happen and that they did write such a shtar, which we just answered according to Ravasi is what you have to say. But now that we learn in the Mishnah that you could write, so we're concerned maybe it was written to borrow, but the borrowing didn't happen, which the Gemara later is going to ask on Abaye. He says, so wait a second, I don't understand. Why can't you return it? I thought the Eidim B'chasim already zeichet him, so then the lender is appropriately collecting. So how's Abaye getting out of that problem? Why wouldn't you return it then if he's admitting that he owes it to him? But first the Gemara asks on Abaye, L'hadet nan, from the Mishnah Daf Yud. Mishnah says, Motze gite nashim. If someone finds a get of a woman, or a shechur avadim, or an emancipation of a slave, or daitiki, which refers to the last will of a dying person, which the word daitiki is dot teiku, that this should be something that stands, because the words of a shchimera are like that, it's written and it's already given over already. Or matana, he finds a document of a gift of a healthy person, or v'shevarim, or receipts, meaning that the payment of a document. All these types of documents, if you find, says the Mishnah later on Daf Yud, you don't return them. Why? Because maybe they were written to be given, but he changed his mind and they wasn't given. So now when you find it, doesn't mean it belongs to the recipient. Says the Gemara, but when you change your mind, who cares? But Abaye said, you said that the witnesses are with their signatures a mazakatim, so automatically it's the recipients. So who cares if it wasn't given? It's already, like we said, even though the loan didn't happen, so right away by the writing when the witnesses signed. Says no, when we say that, is if it ultimately, even at a later point in time, comes to the hands of the recipient, then we say that the witnesses, when they signed, already mazakatim from the time that it was written. So that's why there's no concern, let's say, because it ultimately happens, just happens delayed. But when we're concerned that maybe it wasn't given at all, where it doesn't reach the person's hand, then lo yamrinan, then we don't say. But then Rashi has a difficulty in the middle of Maskal Hanamili. He says, well, what do you do in Mishnah Masechta Shviyos that says, Sh'torichev HaMugdamin, predated documents are puzzle, and if they're mu'achar and if they're post-dated, they're kosher. How's Abaye going to explain it? What do you mean? Predated is not a problem. Anytime it's signed, even though it's earlier than when it actually happened, then the witnesses are mazaked then. So on that Rashi says, no, it's when the writing is before the signing. And that's why it's possible, because you're going to come to collect from when it was written. Usually the signing happens the same time when you write, so then there's no predated because the witness's signature already is mazaka. No, they wrote it on one day and then they signed it at a later point in time. Or another approach is that they actually signed it, they wrote it and signed it in Tishrei, but they actually wrote inside of it that it was Nisan, which is Rosh Hashanah for the Shtar, so they made a mistake. They actually wrote it earlier than it actually happened. So that's not Eid B'Chasim Zavzalai, because that was an earlier date than even when the witnesses actually signed. That would be what Allah is, that Shtorch of Mugdaman would be possible. But then the Gemara continues asking Nabaya, El Masnit Diktani. So with our Mishnah, that our Mishnah says, Matzah Shtari Chayiv, if you find a loan document, Im Yesh Ben Machrayis Nachasim. So Remeir said that if there's Achrayis Nachasim, if there's a lien then lo yachzer, then you're not allowed to return it. But Kimli said, why? Why can't you return it? The bar admits to it. It says, although Kimli Keshachayiv Maida said, although the bar admits, but Meshimba were concerned, like we said, Shemakasav Livas Benishim Lelavat Tishrei, and maybe it was written for the loan to happen in Nisan, but it didn't happen until Tishrei, and you're going to end up collecting from the Lakucha Shalaikidin. Fine. But says the Gemara, Bishlem Ravasi, we understand according to Ravasi, the first approach we said in the Gemara. Dama that he says, and he explains the Mishnah Bava Basra, that this, you're allowed to write it for the borrower, even though the lender's not there. We said Bishtor Akniyasa is only by a document of transference. Then Mukila, he explains our Mishnah, Bishtar Delava Akniyasa, by when it's not a Shtar Makna. And therefore that's why you cannot return it. I mean, like we said, because it's a flaw. And we're concerned, okay, although you're not allowed to, but maybe it happened and they did write it, and therefore it is Muktim, because they wrote it for the borrower without the lender, and you would not Makna it right away. And therefore, that's why the person wasn't careful, and therefore it was thrown on the floor, and therefore that's why it was found. So you can't just return it to the lender because we're concerned that maybe it's really not a kosher document because it was written to be in Nisan, but it was only loaned to have a petition. It was not a shtar hakna, and even though you're not supposed to, we said maybe it happened, and we see that there's a flaw over here, so we're concerned that maybe it happened. So that's how you explain the Allah of our Mishnah. But according to Abaya that says that a witness automatically with his signatures is mazaket to the other party, to the lender. What are you going to say? What's the concern in our Mishnah? If the bar admits to the lender that the loan happened, so there's no concern that maybe it was written in Nisan and it wasn't given till Tishrei, because even that happened, the moment it's written and signed, the Eidim are already mazaket to the lender. So why are you not returning to the lender? There's not going to be inappropriately collected from the buyers. The buyers are appropriately collected from. Abaya would tell you, Maslina, you want to know the reason of our Mishnah? Because we're concerned that maybe the bar really paid up the lender. And you know who it fell from? It actually fell for the borrower. Well, but the borrower is admitting, and he's saying I didn't pay it up. No, that's just a con that's between the two of them of deceit, that they're trying to snatch from the buyers that bought from the borrower property without insurance. And so therefore the buyer is not going to have to pay back, the borrower is not going to have to pay back to his buyers because they bought it without insurance. And now him and the lender are going to split what they're going to be able to collect from his buyers. That's what we're concerned for. So therefore, in the Zacharias Nachasim, since it fell, our brains are already starting to think, okay, there's a flag over here, and you know what? Even if he admits, you cannot collect you don't give back the document to the lender. But then says the Gemara, okay, so that's how we explain according to Abai. We said according to Avasi, the concern is Shem Kasav Lulvis Benisim Lova Tishrei. Just try to hold cup as much as possible because it's one of those difficult dafim. That's the concern according to Avasi of our Mishnah. According to Abaya, the concern is, we're concerned for Peroin or Kanunya. We're concerned that, no, maybe paid it up, and they're doing a trick. Now, says the Gemara, we're adding on more and more variables. Well, the Shmuel de Amar, according to Shmuel, that he says later on, that would not concern for Peroin and Kanunya, meaning, we're not concerned for Peroin when you find a document, even if the borrower does not admit that if it would be true that he would have paid it, then he would have torn it up. As Shmuel says later on, Daf Tezayim Beis, if someone finds a shtar hakna in the street, he returns it to the owner, meaning to the lender, and for sure when he admits, from that reason itself, that the day he would have paid up, he would have ripped it up. So therefore, you're not concerned at a later point in time for kanunya, because the whole kanunya is based on paying. Since we're not concerned for paying, because if it would have been paid, you would never have found this document. The guy would have ripped it up right away. He doesn't want it to be around. So according to Shmuel, is not concerned for Peroin the Kanunya. Michael, man, what are you going to say? How are you going to explain the halacha of the Mishnah? According to Abaya. Because remember, according to Abaya, the whole concern is that we're concerned of Peroin the Kanunya. Shmuel is not concerned for that. So the Gemara explains. I understand if Shmuel holds like Rabasi. Lama that he says that you write, it's talking about B'shtari Hakna. So mukamestin, meaning when like Ravasi explains Bava Basra, that this thing you could write it for a borrower without the lender, which is really the source of when you would be concerned that maybe it was borrowed in Nisan and it was written in Nisan, it wasn't loaned until Tishrei. So Ravasi says, no, you only write the B'shtar Kna, so mukamestin B'shtar de Lavakna. He would explain the halacha of our Mishnah that we are concerned for you're going to be collecting inappropriately 6 months early by shtar. That's not akna. And again, maybe it happened because we found it. But Elisaba kabaya. But if Shmuel holds like a baya, that says that the witnesses with their own signature already is mezakeh to the lender. Again, ma'ikalamema. What are you going to say? Why don't you return it to the lender? Which Rashi in the Masechah says. And if you're going to ask, what do you mean? What's the Gemara even trying to attempt? You tell me according to Abbasi, Shmuel makes sense. Why are you trying to even say that Shmuel's like Abaya? We know for sure he can't be like Abaya. Because if he was like Abaya, why on Daf Yudalid, in the words of Shmuel later on, does Shmuel explain that the Mishnah is talking about Shtar Akna? According to Abaya, there's no difference between the Shtar Akna and the non-Akna. Even the Shtar that's not Akna, you return. Because since Shmuel is not concerned for Perain, so we already know that he's not like Abaya. So says Rashi, that's not a question, because Abaya agrees that when the document never came to his hand, as we said, that when the borrower does not admit, so therefore you could say that maybe it was written to borrow and the loan didn't happen at all and never got to his hand at all. Where then you can't say that it wouldn't be applicable, but only by shtar hakna, like Shmuel says, because the whole word of that Abai is not concerned for it. The Gemara itself made a differentiation. Abai himself is only when you end up getting it. If you don't end up getting it, like the Mishnah Daf Yudches, that we're concerned it wasn't given at all, then it's not going to work at all with Eidu Echasim Zachen, and then it would be specifically by shtar hakna. So that's just a side. But Rashi is just saying that why that would necessitate that Shmuel is not like Abaya. But the Gemara wants to know, how would he explain the Mishnah according to Abaya? So the Gemara says, Shmuel explains our Mishnah when the borrower does not admit to the writing of the document. The borrower says, I never wrote this, it's a forgery. So Rashi says, the bottom Rashi, so why don't you just verify with the signatures? Says, no, since it fell, again, it's a flaw, and we say that you know why it fell, because it was puzzle. That's why he wasn't careful. And if we trust him when he says that that I don't admit, it was never written, and therefore, we're not going to return it to the lender. So Gemara says, wait a second, if that's the case, that's why according to Shmuel, if he held like Abaya, how he would explain the Mishnah, so I understand, ki ein behem achayis nachasim. So when there is no insurance, why are you returning it? Although you're right, the lender is not going to be able to collect from collateral, but he's going to collect from the bar himself, but the bar doesn't admit. And you told me that you wouldn't even be able to make a sum of, why are you returning it then? Says the Gemara, no, and this is a very important point. Shmuel Tamei. Shmuel goes according to his reasoning elsewhere. Shmuel says, Meir said that when you have a loan document that does not have insurance inside of it, ein goyvi cannot collect loy memishamdi v'loy b'mnechari. So this is very interesting. We're going to find 3 different opinions on what the halacha is in a shtar chayv that doesn't have mechayis nachasim. Shmuel holds that you cannot collect not from collateral and not from even the available assets. Meaning, if the borrower does not admit, because what happens is that a document that does not have a shibud nechasim is not a shtar, because inherently a person would only make a loan if it has achrayis nechasim. So essentially, it's like an oral loan that has no witnesses. So that's it. You can't collect even from the b'nei chari. So there's no concern. So that's why you can return to the lender, because you won't collect from the b'nei chari. So then the Gemara says, I don't understand. If the lender is not going to be able to collect, not from mishabadim, and not from what's b'nei chari, so why? So what's Ramey saying in the Mishnah? You return it. What are you returning from? You can't collect anything with it. So on that, Amr ibn Nassim Barishi says, "Lots of shel malva." It's just to wrap the opening of the flask of the lender for the piece of paper. That's why you turn to the lender, because he wants to be able to the good parchment paper. It's good to close that bottle of whiskey. So the Gemara says, but how do you know it's the lender's? Return to the borrower. The borrower could be able to close his flask. Well, he's denying that it's owed to the lender. Says Gemara, no, leiva who has a getin in bays. The borrower is saying, he's saying this never happened. That's what Rashi was explaining, that kishein chayev moida means to say, as Taisus explains here on the top of the Amid, says, it sounds like the borrower is claiming there was a forgery. So you can't say that this that he was saying what's called lahadam lo idvar me'olam is that he was saying, no, I paid it up, because if that would be the case, then you're right, then you should return to the borrower that he could wrap his flask. Moreover, he says, Shmuel is not concerned for Parayin. So if you're agreeing to the borrower, must be that he's saying it never happened, not that I paid it up because we're not concerned for paying it up. So since he's saying it never happened, so no problem. If it never happened, we can't give you back the paper because you're saying that this paper never happened. It's a forgery. So who forged it must be the lender. So we give the lender back the paper. Now at the same time, we don't trust the lender versus the borrower. So he's not going to collect anything, but the paper itself is going to go to the lender, obviously, because the borrower obviously saying this never happened. So we have so far three different opinions in three different, at least Manda Amma that were mentioned so far, which was we had Ravasi / Rabbi Yechanan, we had the opinion of Abaya, and we mentioned Shmuel. But now the Gemara mentions really the third opinion, which is like Shmuel, Amar Rebbe Lazar. He explains, the machlekes is b'she'ein chayiv maida. So, like we had said, we had mentioned, as the Gemara is going to mention Rabbi Yechanan soon, but there was the opinion we said originally, Ravasi. Rabbi Yechanan said the machlekes is when the debtor admits to the loan. And that's what we said. So if he admits, so we said, what's the difference between achrayus nechasim or not? Because since it falls, there's a flaw. And we said that you can't return it because we're concerned that maybe it was written to be borrowed and it wasn't borrowed till 6 months later. And although that we say generally you can't write it, but since it fell, maybe it did happen. And the Chacham would say no, that the achrayus is toy sefer. So again, it's you can be able to collect even without achrayus nechasim from the achrayus because it's a toy sefer. So either one you cannot return. That was the first opinion. The second opinion of Abaye that we mentioned was he says that he also agrees that the machlekes is when the bar admits, but he's not concerned for what Ravasi said because Eidei b'chasim u'zachanoi, and therefore even shtar de lavakna that would go ahead as long as the kamat liyadei that we would say that it's no concern because the Eidim already mizakeh to you. So what was his concern? His concern was that w'chayesh lepirayin lekanunya. That we're concerned for. That maybe the guy really paid it up. So even though he's admitting, maybe they're doing a trick. So therefore he can't return it to the lender. Oh, but chayrin, no problem, collect from him. Whereas according to the Chacham, again, they hold achrayus toy sefer, and therefore you might collect even with the other one too. So therefore, according to both these approaches, like we said, that kishein chayiv maida, if he wouldn't admit, according to everyone, you wouldn't return it, because again, we are concerned that it might have been paid or maybe it never happened at all. Now we're up to the third opinion. Amar Rebbe Lazar, he says, machlekes not like we said up until now. The first two opinions said machlekes was kishein chayiv maida, when the borrower is admitting that it belongs to the lender. And then we had two different shatim between Ravasi and Abaya. So then why don't you return it when the chayes nechasim either because levanizim lelav tisha or because chashin param b'kanunya. This is the third pshat. Amar Rebbe Lazar. Machlekes is b'she'ein chayiv maida. No. Mishnah is discussing the bar is not admitting that he owes the money. So what's the two different opinions on Mishnah, Rameh and the Chachamim? Rameh Yisrael holds like this. A document that does not have insurance on it, you cannot collect you cannot collect from anything. Which was like we just explained the Amid Aleph, when we talk about Shmuel in the opinion of Abaya, is where we mentioned this idea that Reb Meir holds you're not going to have to collect from anything. Oh great. So when there's no achrayus nechasim, will return it to the lender because the lender can't collect anything anyway. So that's why he said you return it to the lender. And again, remember, we're talking about with the borrower is denying that he owes the money. No problem. You don't owe the money. No problem. So the paper's not yours either. So we'll give it to the lender. But the lender won't be able to collect anyway. But at least he'll get the piece of paper. Now, Rabban Sav, the Rabban hold, however, remember the Rabban and the Mishnah tell us that even when there's no achayis nechasim, you cannot return it to the lender. Now, so on that Rabban hold, that it will be considered as a document, at least that it'll be considered as if it's an oral loan with witnesses. Oh, so therefore, although the lender is not going to collect from Mishabadim, he will be collecting from the borrower's available assets. Oh, that's why the Chacham say you cannot return it to the lender even when there's no achayis nechasim. Because the moment it fell, there's already a flaw over here. And therefore we would believe the borrower when he says that it's a forgery. Because why else would it be on the floor? Oh, so that's what the Chacham say, you cannot return it to the lender. Again, it's a mamash hard cup because Chacham is saying very different pshat. What?
According to this, you can't collect if there's no nechasim mentioned in the shtar. Or the guy doesn't have nechasim.
What do you mean?
You can collect according to this opinion. But if there's no, unlike Shmuel, right? That's unlike Rabbi Elazar who says you cannot collect if there's no nechasim mentioned in the shtar, but you can collect.
When there's a achrayis nechasim, if the it's not so much nechasim itself, it's the insurance that we saying that you right. I mean, in other words, if it doesn't say that you collect from nechasim, so you're not going to be. So what's the question? That what?
But you can collect. You see over here that you can collect if there's no mention of a guarantee in the shtar or in the nechasim.
You can collect.
Yeah, if he loses it and the lover doesn't admit, he can still collect.
What's the question? I'm just trying to.
Because you said over here, Rabbi Elazar says that you can't collect if there's no nechasim.
Right, that was what we said in Amid Aleph, that Shmuel explained in the mayor that if
there's no divrei hakol, yachsa, everybody agrees that you can get it back.
you're talking about the next words, I didn't read those. Are you talking about Avak Shechayv Maida? You talking about?
Presume.
Yeah, so the next words of the Gemara says Avak Shechayv Maida. That's what I'm saying. We're saying the Machlekes says Rabbi Elazar in that Mishnah is only when the bar doesn't admit, and that's the Machlekes of between Yomei and the Chachamim. The mayor says that you're not going to return it only when there's achrayis nechasim because of the collection from the lekuches. But b'shtar she'im b'achrayis nechasim we'll return it because he's not going to collect anyway. It's not a document without achrayis nechasim. Rabban hold that no, it is somewhat considered as a document. You'll end up collecting from the borrower, but the borrower doesn't admit. But if the borrower admits, everyone agrees, according to Rabbi Elazar, everyone agrees that you return it to the lender. Why? Because meaning Rabbi Elazar holds that no one is concerned for that maybe, like the way we say that for Abaya, that maybe it was paid and really they're making a trick. And obviously they all hold, not like Rav Asi either. Again, this is all in Rabbi Elazar's opinion, in the third opinion, that because then you would have the concern, who cares that he's admitting, maybe it was Kasab Livas Benisham Lelabat Tishrei. No, according to Rabbi Elazar, the Mishnah is talking about when the bar does not admit, but if he did admit, then we wouldn't have any concerns for Paroin or Kanunya. That's the third opinion. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he explains, and this is really how we said the first opinion of Ravasi. So this is what really Rabbi Yechanan is doing. Rabbi Yechanan machlekes, the machlekes keshachayiv moida. No, not when he's not moida. Machlekes is when the borrower admits that it belongs to the lender. So Meir holds shtar shem b'chayis nachasim, a document that does not have insurance. Memeshabdihu delagavi. It's only from the mishabadim that you don't collect. So that's what we said. We said we're going to find many different opinions on the shtar she'im b'chayis nachasim. We have 3 different ways of interpreting it. Rabbi Yochanan says that, very simple. If you have a document that doesn't have a chayis nachasim, it's a regular document. Obviously, if there's no insurance, you cannot collect from collateral. But from available, you will be able to collect. And therefore you return it because, again, Rabbi Yochanan holds we're talking about when the borrower is admitting. If he's admitting, so fine, let him collect from his own stuff. But Rabban Zarba, they hold, no, it's not true. You can collect even from the collateral, as the Gemara is going to explain on the next daf, that achrayis, if it's not mentioned, which it doesn't have achrayis, is a toy cipher. And therefore you actually could collect from achrayis even when it's not written. Oh, if it is, then we're concerned that maybe that he really paid him up and they're just doing a kanunya, doing really a trick. It's not okay that you're admitting. You're only admitting because you want to be able to split with the lender what the buyer who bought from you. Now, so that's how he's explaining the Mishnah. But if the buyer does not admit, and as Rashi explains, even if he admits that it was written, it's just that he says, I paid it. Oh, according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to everyone, you're not going to return to the lender because maybe he really paid him up. And especially we're concerned for that because you found it on the floor. So therefore, that is the 3 different opinions in how to explain the halacha of our Mishnah regarding the machlokes. So on that says the Gemara, Tanya Kavased Rabbi Yochanan. We're going to quote now a brisa that's like Rabbi Yochanan, which is the first interpretation, like we said for Avasi. V'tiyuftu Rabbi Lazar v'chada refutes the third opinion of Rabbi Lazar on one point, and Tiyuftu the Shmuel b'tarti, and refutes Shmuel on 2 points. So the Gemara explains. The brisa says like this: Matzah shtori chayv. Someone found a loan document. And on the loan document there is a lien on the properties. Says the brisa, even though both of them are admitting, meaning the borrower and the lender both admit that it wasn't paid up, it belongs to the lender. No, we're concerned for kinyan. We're concerned that they're doing a trick, because remember there's a chayis nachasim, so they might be able to split, the assets that were sold off. So le'achzeh, you don't return it leila zeh b'la zeh, you don't give it not to the borrower, not to the lender, you don't give it back to anybody. That's if there's a chayis nachasim. If there's no insurance, okay. So if the borrower admits that he owes it to the lender, no problem. Give it back to the lender because there's no kanunya. You're not collecting from Shabbatim anyway. If the borrower does not admit, okay, then the Remeir says, so you don't return not to the lender, not to the borrower. Because Remeir said, if you have a document that has insurance, then you collect from the collateral. And therefore that's why you cannot return it, even if they both admit, because we're concerned for kanunya, for a trick. Now, if there's no lien on the property, so you have to collect from the available assets, so therefore that explains the halacha that we just mentioned in Remeir. They say no, either case, you will collect, even if it's not written achrayis nechasim, as we'll say on the next daf, you're still going to collect from nechasim mishabadim. So therefore, you can have the concern for kanunya, even when there's no achrayis nechasim. Says the Gemara, okay, so this is really what we said for Rabbi Yochanan. He explains their machlokes when, as we said, when the borrower admits, but when the borrower does not admit, according to everyone, you're not going to return it because we're concerned for parayin. So therefore, the brisa point number 1 is like Rabbi Yochanan. Now, to Yuftin Rabbi Lazar b'chada, the third opinion of Rabbi Lazar is refuted on one point, because the Amar, Rabbi Lazar had said, L'Remeir, according to Remeir, this is point number 1. It's actually 2 points. The Gemara is going to ask why we're calling it 1, but it's really 2 points. According to Remeir, he said, Shtar she'im b'chrayis nachasim. If there's no lien in the document, said Remeir, in the nachasim mishabadim, you cannot collect not from nachasim mishabadim, the loy b'nachasim necharim. If you recall, on the top of the Amid, he had explained, which was interesting for us, the way the top Rashi had explained, that it's not even a document at all. It's like an oral loan without witnesses, because if there's no chayes nechasim, it's not a document. That's how Rabbi Lazar had explained Remeir. Now there's a point number 2. Another point Rabbi Lazar had made. B'kamar, he said, Bein l'Remeir, bein l'Rabbanan, l'chashen l'kanunya. He says, no, we're not concerned for kanunya. So when he admits, of course you're going to turn it. Rabbi Lazar had said the machlokes is when the borrower does not admit, as we had explained on the top of the Amid. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yisrael refutes him on these 2 points. First of all, the Brisa says, Shtar Shem B'chayis Nachasim, a document that does not have a lien, Min Meshabdihu de Gavi, you could only not collect from Meshabad, Habnechar Mikva Gavi, which again, that was like Rabbi Yechanan, which is point number one, not like Rabbi Lazar, that you could collect from Necharin. And number two, V'katani, the Brisa says, Bein L'Rameya, Bein L'Rabbanan, we are concerned for situations like Kanunya, even when the bar is admitting. Because the Brisa said, even though they both admitting both the lend and the borrower, we said, return to either one of them. Obviously, we are concerned about trickery. So therefore, Rabbi Lazar is refuted on 2 points. So the Gemara says, that's 2 points. Why do you say that Rabbi Lazar is refuted on 1 point? So it's on top of your Dalam and Aleph, says the Gemara, no, Chaduhu, it's really one. Because the Chad Tamhu, it's really, there's one reason that required Rabbi Lazar to say both points, and therefore he's refuted. Because the Mishum Dekam Rabbi Lazar, because Rabbi Lazar had said, as we explained on the top of the Gimel and base, since he explained that the whole machlekes in our Mishnah was only when the bar does not admit, hu metaratachi, that's why he had to say that you cannot collect, according to a mayor, even from the available assets of the borrower. And that's why, according to a mayor, we said that you could return it to the lender. Now, since he had to conclude, but when the borrower does admit, according to everyone, you are going to return it, so then by default he had to say we're not concerned for Kanunya because we are concerned for Kanunya, how you let to return it. So the other point he only had to say because the first point, so although the Brisa explicitly refuting both points, Rabbi Lazar, that was really 1 point, and therefore we're calling it on 1 point. Now, Tiyufti de Shmuel B'tarti, and Shmuel is refuted on both points, on 2 points. Well, first of all, Chadik Rabbi Lazar. One is like Rabbi Lazar, because the Hamukim Asnitin, Shmuel had explained the Mishnah B'She'en Chayiv Maida, meaning he had explained it like Rabbi Lazar, that the borrower does not admit, and when we refuted that point, as we just said, for Rabbi Lazar. And B'chada, another one is the Amar Shmuel, it refutes another point of Shmuel that he says, we bring it on Tazayin on the base. Shmuel says, Matzah Shtar Hakna B'Shuk. If you find a Shtar Hakna, again, which is an automatic acquisition document, and you find such a document in the street, which again, you cannot say that maybe it was written and he didn't borrow, because even if he didn't borrow, he was already mishabed himself at the time of the hakna. So says Shmuel Yachz l'bayil. So he returned it to the lender, and we're not concerned for that maybe it was paid up. And even if the bar does not admit, if it was true that he paid up, he would have ripped it up. And the fact that it's not ripped up when we find it, Shmuel says yes, to return it to the lender. To that point, the Shmuel is refuted from the Brisa. Because the Ketani Hacha, the Brisa says over here, although both of them, the lender and the borrower, agree that it wasn't paid up, that lo yachzor lo lezeh lo lezeh, we don't return it not to the borrower, not to the lender. Why don't we return to the lender? Obviously, we see that the Brisa is concerned that maybe it was paid up, and then why is he admitting because of a trick? Kanunya. Oh, so Choshkin Hacha, for sure, here in the case of Shmuel, where the bar is not admitting that for sure the Chashin Leparayan, for sure we would be concerned for payment, which is not like Shmuel, who says we're not concerned for payment, which Rashi just points out in the Masechta Kol Shekain, that he says, why didn't we ask that second question on Rabbi Lazar? Because he says that when the borrower does not admit, you don't return any document that's fit to collect, because this that your mayor says you do return, we explain this only because you cannot collect with it according to Rabbi Lazar. Because he held that according to a mayor, a document that doesn't have a chayes nachasim is not even a document at all. So therefore you couldn't ask this question on Rabbi Lazar, and therefore it's only a question that we ask on Shmuel. So that's what the Gemara was saying, that we have a brisa that's like Rabbi Yechanan, we have one which is really 2 questions on Rabbi Lazar, and we have 2 questions on Shmuel, which is number 1, how he interprets the brisa, our Mishnah like Rabbi Lazar, and number 2 is another teaching of Shmuel in Daf Tazayin, which is also refuted regarding this idea of that regarding are we concerned for Parayin or not. That's the second point that's refuted. And again, that was the 3 different interpretations we had how to explain the halacha of our Mishnah. 2 of them were talking about that Kishachayev Moida, when the borrower was admitting to the loan, and still we said we're not going to return it to the lender with Zachrayas Nechasim because either we're concerned that maybe that they wrote to borrow, but it wasn't borrowed until 6 months later. That's one concern. That was the first interpretation of Rabbi Yechanan. Or the way Abaye said it is that we're concerned for maybe he's not concerned with Ravasi because he says Idi b'chasum zachanoi, but his concern is that maybe it was paid up, and there's a kanunya. They're splitting. They're going to split this scam between the two of them. That's how they explain. And again, the chachamim, as the Gemara will say in the next daf, is because Achrayis Ta'asayva, who they hold, even when there's no Achrayis Ta'asayva, you can't return it because you're going to still collect, so you still have the concerns of Shemukas or because of the Chashad Parana Kanunya. Or the third pshat was that of Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar says, no, the machlekes is not when the chayiv is moida. Machlekes is when he's not moida. So then, if he's not moida, so what's the machlekes? Machlekes is regarding, we're talking about over here that he's not admitting, so he's not admitting, of course not going to return when there's a chayes nechasim. But when there's no chayes nechasim, you will return it. But why? He's not admitting, he's going to be able to collect from the chayri. Rebbe Lazar holds that it's not even a shtar then. No chayes nechasim, it's not a shtar, because everyone writes a chayes nechasim. It's not even a chayes toisayv like the chum that it will be something. No, and therefore you won't be able to collect. So what are you returning? But the piece of paper, why didn't you give it to the bar? Because the bar is saying it never happened. I never borrowed such a thing. So therefore, that's why you give it to the lender. Thank you to any time for hosting us.